That's it, I'm done. I'm done with this woodworking crap. The day every woodworker dreams of is finally here for me. No, I'm not getting Al Borland as an assistant. Welcome to a new year and a new video from Jasco Goods. I finally get to replace one of my most hated power tools. Can you guess which one it is? I've had this tool on my Christmas list for many years, but for some reason Santa keeps bringing me fuel for my grill, which is weird because my grill takes propane. Well, this year he finally came through and gave me a gift card for Lowe's. But I took that gift card and I went and I bought a new table saw. Now it's no fancy saw stop. Heck, it's not even a DeWalt. But compared to my old saw, it's the best saw in the world. I love this saw. One of the biggest differences between this skill saw and my old saw is this skill saw has miter slots. So I'll finally be able to build all those table saw jigs I've been dreaming about for years. So in today's video, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. And I'm gonna start with a crosscut sled. So let's stop talking and let's get to building.
So when I bought this saw, it was on a Black Friday deal and I got it for $279. It's regularly $299, so it's really only 20 bucks off. But still, even at the regular price, a saw at this price point with all the features this saw has is a steal. Now my old saw was a lot taller than this one, but it's on wheels right now, wheels that I bought separately. They're from Win. So I got to take these wheels off my old saw and put them onto the new saw. Now I just had to adjust them a little to get them to fit because this base was actually bigger than my old saw, but I like it on here. I like being able to roll it around the shop and put it away. These are perfect for when you have a small shop. But another great thing about this saw is you could fold up the legs if you wanted and build it right into your workbench.
So I'm using this combination square and a piece of wood to square the blade to the miter track. Now I have to admit, this is the first time I've done this because my old saw didn't have miter tracks, so I only had to square them to the fence itself. And I square it with this. So if I move this, the tooth just barely scrapes on it. Then I'm using that same tooth and I'm pushing it to the back. Most people marked it with a marker, and now it's rubbing just like it did in the front. So I would imagine that that's what you're supposed to do. I did the same thing with the fence and used the T-track, and everything looks square to me, so I'm gonna call it good. Before anybody says anything, I did check the width of my wood all the way down.
The fence looks like it's 90, and according to this digital angle gauge, so does my blade. Everything looks square to me, so we're gonna call it good.
I did a video about my Ryobi batteries dying within like a year or two, and a lot of people were like, "You're an idiot." And that was just my wife. A lot of people said it had to be user error and I was doing something wrong. What? I don't know. They just said I was doing something wrong. My theory is the heat here in Las Vegas is what kills my batteries. And here's another case in point. I just bought this in August and put brand new batteries in it, and I went to use it today. I haven't used it since, and it was dead. The batteries were dead. This was the battery I took out of it. You see how it corroded already? I just put these in there in August, so it hasn't even been 6 months. I also took this out today to use for the first time, and the battery was dead. So my theory is the Las Vegas heat kills the batteries. Let me know anybody else that lives in Las Vegas or in a hot climate, and you have the same problem with batteries dying. That's my theory, because some people said they've had Ryobis for 10, 15 years with the same batteries and they didn't die. And I just haven't been able to pull that off.
I love the rack pinion fence on this thing. I've been sitting here turning this back and forth about 100 times. It's just awesome compared to my old saw, the way I had to like crank down on this handle to get it to lock in. Then the fence would go out of square. You had to keep playing with it and to get it right. So this is a big upgrade for me, guys. Sorry. So I'm using these cheap welfare saw horses that I got from Harbor Freight, and I'm going to use them to cut down my plywood to a manageable size for the table saw. I'm going to make the whole crosscut sled out of this 3/4 inch piece of plywood that I have. I had to break one of my life rules to get this plywood, and I'm a little ashamed of myself. I always tell everybody that I see, don't ever buy this pre-cut plywood from the big box stores. And if I see somebody that has some of it in their cart, I look down on them and judge them with disdain. Because if you look closely, you'll notice this full sheet of MDF is $52.98. Then they're selling a quarter of a sheet for more than half the price of a full sheet. When all you gotta do is grab a full sheet, bring it over to the panel saw, and they'll cut it for free. They do the same thing with any dimensional lumber, 2x4, 1x4, 2x12, you name it, they'll cut it down for you for free. Well, this day I was in my wife's car because my truck is broke down and I couldn't fit a full sheet into it. And I waited over there and waited over there. There was nobody around for 10 aisles. So I paid double for these sheets of plywood, and I'm ashamed of myself. It's like I just threw my money down the drain. It's like using toilet paper once and then throwing it away. What's next? Am I going to stop washing my paper plates? Sorry guys, I just had to get that off my chest. I'm using my Craig Rip Cut guide to get this to a manageable size, but then I'm going to square it up on the table saw. So this is the first cut I've ever made on this table saw, and it's kind of fitting that it's for my crosscut sled. This piece that I'm cutting right here is going to be the base of my crosscut sled, and it's going to be 24 inches wide, which is the width of the table saw, by 18 inches deep.
So I got this kit off of Amazon. It comes with some T-track and a stop block jig thing. It also came with some plastic runners that go in your miter slot. So I was going to use wood, but when I watched several videos on this, and a lot of people said wood swells and does all kinds of stuff. So it's better if you have plastic or aluminum. And this kit was pretty cheap, and it came with everything else that I wanted, so I got it. And it also came with this guard that goes on the back. I'll show you that when we get to it. So there seems to be a little bit of play in here. When you pull it out, you can see that. I'm gonna still try to make it work. I'm gonna put some tape on opposite sides so it's pushing, they're both pushing away from the middle, and then that way when I put it in, it doesn't move. I'm gonna put a little CA glue on the rails. I almost messed up. I forgot to put my washers down to hold them up a little bit. That would have sucked. Good thing I remembered right now. I'm gonna spray some activator on here if I find a place to set it down. I have the fence clamped so I can push this against the fence and then drop it on there so it's nice and square. So now I should be able to flip this over. Oh, it didn't even stick to them. One side stuck, the other side didn't. Let's try that again.
The instructions said to use CA glue, so this should be working. Maybe I don't weigh enough. Maybe I'm not heavy enough, you know?
What? Okay, now let's try. This is not working. Look, see how it says use CA glue right in the instructions? On the HDPE bars. See that? CA glue. Doesn't hold though. Not at all.
I had to use a scraper to get some of the CA glue that built up underneath the sled off. So I saw another video where a guy was using double-sided tape to stick the miter rails to the bottom of the sled just long enough to get your screws on, so I'm going to try that. If this doesn't work, I'm going to rage quit and join the circus. Looky here. It worked. Now I just used my countersink bit and then put some screws into this thing. And one thing I noticed was when I put the screws in, it widened the plastic a little bit, so that helped make up for the play that was in it. And another thing was this kit didn't come with screws for this rail. Luckily, I had bought some extra rails because I was going to make some more jigs, and they had screws, so I used some of those. But it's kind of strange they didn't give you any screws for this thing. They gave you screws for the other parts of the kit, but just not the rails for some reason.
What do you think? Seems pretty... Oh, well, I got the fence, so... Seems pretty sturdy. This is the fence I cut off of there that I was going to cut down. I don't even have one good side. You see how bad this cut is? Look at that. There's my normal swoop I always do with that stupid thing. And then on this side, look at this. This looks like someone grew up under high power lines in a lead-filled house next to a toxic waste dump. Cut this. I love this part that flips around and then supports your wood when you have it hanging off like that. You always got to have your wood supported.
So I had to cut 2 more pieces since mine looked like an amateur woodworker was drunk and cut them.
Okay, so this is my front fence. I'm going to glue these 2 pieces together. This back piece is 3 inches. And then this front piece is 3 inches minus the T-track. So I'm going to glue these 2 together, and then my T-track is going to sit on this piece like this. I left the factory blade in the saw thinking it's brand new. How bad could it be? But look at the chip out I'm getting. I should have changed it out.
All the accessories that came with the saw have a spot to be stored on the saw, which is really cool. But I just don't like the way they use the wing nut for these wrenches because it's really easy to just drop a wing nut. I got big fat butter fingers, and I mean literally I got butter on my fingers all the time. So it was the end of the day and I glued and clamped my fence together and I let it dry overnight. But it turned out I jascoed the whole thing.
All right, I messed up on my fence and I'm not happy with it, so I'm going to rebuild it. You guys are not going to believe this. If you look at the top of the T-track, you see there's no plywood showing behind it. But as you get down to the end, you see how there's plywood showing behind it. When I cut the front part of my fence, I forgot to lock in my blade. And if you don't lock this in, it'll just move. And it just moved just enough. And I noticed it moved, but I didn't think it was gonna be that bad. But now when I put this thing on here, so it just barely touches the ground. So when you slide it to this end where it gets smaller, it starts rubbing on the ground. What do you think? Would you guys live with that? I can't do it.
So I squared up my board and I cut a new fence. And this one came out much better than the first one. I had about 9 inches left over, a little over 9 inches from that piece of plywood that I started with. So I was going to use that to make my back fence. But first I wanted to take the sticker off of it using a heat gun. Everybody always suggests that in my comments, so I'm going to give it a try and see how it works. The sticker came off pretty good, but it left a lot of glue behind and it was pretty tacky. But that's okay because I'll just use that in between the pieces that I'm going to sandwich together. Dang it, now I want a sandwich. And then I cut that piece into 2 4.5-inch strips. Then I'm putting on glue like they put mayo and mustard on those foot-long subs at Subway. Oh, I'm getting hungry. To lighten up my sled, I'm going to cut down the 2 sides to 2 inches. I only really need the 4 inches right where the blade's going to go through. Here's a little diagram I made of what it's going to look like. You can pause it if you want and write down the numbers, but really the numbers are just arbitrary. You see those big words I'm using? Don't sound like somebody that failed 9th grade 3 times, do I? I'm going to do part of the cut with my table saw so it's nice and clean and straight, and then I'm going to finish it off with my jigsaw. So right now I'm just marking where I want to stop the cut. Now you don't have to do it like this, the 45s. You could just do it a square. All you really want is something to cover where your blade's going to go through. I'm only doing it because I saw other people doing it and I really want to fit in. Now I have these little delicate hands, so I rounded over all the top edges where you're going to put your hands on this thing, just so I don't get a cut. Now this is completely optional. If you don't have a router, you can do it with sandpaper and just knock that edge off. I'm just trying to be extra fancy, you know, again, so I can fit in. I also rounded over the top of the back of my front fence. I hope that made sense. And then to confuse you even more, I cut a chamfer into the bottom of the front of my front fence to help with sawdust buildup. Before putting on the back rails, I used a flush cut saw to cut off the excess miter rails. Now your back fence doesn't have to be square to your blade like your front fence does. So to install it, I just lined it up with the edge of the plywood, clamped it down, flipped it over, and put in some 2-inch screws from the bottom. Just make sure you countersink all the screws so when you're sliding your sled across your table saw top, they don't catch on the edge. I don't know why it looks like I'm taking a mean dump right here, but I'm not. But I was really excited about this next part. A lot of the videos that I watched, and I watched a lot of them, at this point in the project is where you raise your table saw blade up through your sled, and it is so satisfying. But every time I cranked mine, all it did was lift the sled up and the blade was not coming through. And I finally realized it's because my riving knife is on, so it's not going to come through this board. So I had to do it the boring way and just slide it over the blade. I guess it was somewhat satisfying too. Now the front fence, that's a little trickier because you have to square it to the blade. So I started by putting 1 screw in one side and then flipping the whole sled over and using that screw as a pivot to adjust the fence so it's square to the blade, which was not easy. The biggest problem I was having was I couldn't find the proper square to use. My framing square was too big, and every other square I had was contradicting the other square, or it was too small to really give me an accurate reading. My best hope was this small framing square I have, but this had the worst issues of them all.
This was the square I was going to use to square my crosscut sled. Can you see how bowed this thing is? Look at this. This thing is not that old. Look, it's the plastic's barely scratched. I got it from Home Depot. It's one of them Empire squares. I don't remember it being this warped when I bought it. I don't know if I dropped it or it's just been sitting in a drawer. I don't know how it got that warped, but it is warped.
So I did the best I could with this big speed square, and then I attached the fence to the base. Now I'm going to use this piece of plywood, and I'm going to do the 5-cut method to test how square it is. This method, you can look it up online. There's a million videos on how to do it. You basically cut every edge, keep going in a circle. You can mark it if you're going to forget, but I think I can remember how to go in a circle. And then after you've cut a little bit off of each side, when you get to the very last cut, which is your 5th cut, you're going to cut a strip off of the piece of wood.
Okay, so now what you do is check both sides. I got 16.46, 16.03. That is close enough for me. If you don't have one of these, another way you can do it is cut this in half. Just keep your thumbs away from there until you get your block on. After you cut them in half, you flip them on their side
because that's the part you cut off. Turn them towards each other and see if you have a lip. I have a lip. See that? That's how off I am, which is a lot for such a small piece. So I'm gonna do a little bit more of adjustments. So I tried every square I had again. And the problem is, when you have squares that aren't agreeing with each other, how do you know which one's the right one? Do they make a wife square that's automatically right no matter what? I decided to just go with my newest square, and hopefully this works. Then I repeated the 5-cut test again. All right, this one's much closer. I don't think I can do any better than this. 22.64. 22.61. I'm gonna do the cut in half test. I mean, I can't get any better than that. Let's just try the cut in half test just to be sure, so I can show you. So if you guys don't have the caliper thing. Okay, we got our two sides. Flip them on their side. Turn them one to the other. Oh, look at that. Somebody better call Amateur Woodworkers Monthly for slow people, because I think I got it. Everybody get up and cheer for the special ed amateur woodworker of the year. So now I'm going to install the T-track. The first hole I drilled, I don't know if you can see that, it went off center just a little bit, but it was enough to push the track away from the lip. So I'm going to clamp it down. And then I got this self-centering drill bit. I don't know if you can see that. It's like tapered on the end, and it's a spring. It's made for hinges or this kind of application. The tapered part fits into the, I can't even talk now, hold on. The tapered tip fits into the tapered hole, and it keeps it in from moving around. Now that my T-track is installed, it's time to see how my little stop block's gonna work here. Looks like it works great. The kit came with this clear plastic blade guard, which is pretty cool, but the design of it doesn't really work. Let me show you what they did. The kit instructions only call for 1 3/4 inch fence up here, but I did a double. But that's not the big issue, because you would think I'd be able to screw it right into here. But if you look on here, look where the screw holes fall. I still could put it in there, but then look, it blocks the stop from sliding. So originally they called for 1, and I'm supposed to fit this into the T-track with the nuts that they provide and bolts. But again, it would have prevented this from sliding. So I don't understand how I'm supposed to use it. I think I'm just gonna kind of do my own thing with it and a couple of these wood blocks that I had left over. The purpose of the blade guard is just to protect your hands when the blade comes through the back of the front fence. And it doesn't have to be nothing fancy. You could just do a plain old block of wood. I rounded over the corner that's going to come in contact with my hands, and then I cut up all the clear plastic and shaped it into something I could use. Then I glued and screwed it all together, and I came up with this monstrosity that I call a blade guard, and I attached it to my crosscut sled. Just as a final touch, I sanded down the whole bottom with 350 grit sandpaper and smoothed everything out, and then coated it all with a paste wax. And the sled slid like a dream, like a greasy KFC dump. Now I can finally cut up my Nature Valley bars without making all them crumbs. One jig down, let's try another one. So originally for my second jig, I was gonna do a joiner jig. And that's, if you're not familiar with it, it's where if you have a curved piece of wood, you stick it on your joiner jig and you run it through the table saw and it gives you a straight edge. But then when I started doing the research, I realized that I could do a joiner jig / taper jig. A taper jig is what you use to taper the ends of like legs, like if you're making table legs or coffee tables. This jig is gonna do both. Let me stop talking about it and I'll just show you. Let's get started. So for this jig, I'm using a piece of MDF, and for the main body, it's gonna be 12 inches wide by 30 inches long. What was really awesome was I got to really try out my crosscut sled to cut it down to the 30 inches, and it worked great. Let's check the cut. I am a master amateur carpenter. I'm gonna use my old rigid router to make the grooves for my T-tracks. I'm gonna route the T-track groove 4 inches from each end. And I'm just gonna use my speed square, a large one, to keep me straight on the track. Then I just took a little bit out of a time, like jobs do to your soul. And then I used another piece of MDF to catch the router on the other side. I didn't end up getting those shop shades that I was talking about a couple videos ago.
price was kind of high for me. I'm kind of cheap, and I think they might only come in prescription, and I don't really need prescription, so I just got these cheap ones off Amazon, and they're nice. Look at these, how they flex. Look, for a fat head like myself, look at that. So, and these were like less than 15, I think, so. Sorry, John. So the blue PowerTech T-Track fits in this slot perfectly. The 3/4 inch that I just did fits in there perfectly. But I got this knockoff because it was cheaper, and this does not fit in there right. So I'm gonna have to widen it a little. PowerTech was already the budget version, and I went for a cheaper budget version, and I went for the budget version of the budget version, and this is what I get stuck with. That's what I get.
So I just hit it up on the sandpaper a little bit until I got it down to the right size. It only was a little bit over.
The edge of that wood is so sharp, I actually sliced my finger rubbing it across there. Oh, I wish I knew about this when I was younger. Look at this stuff. It looks just like cocoa. I would have put it in baggies and sold it at Fat Camp. All right, it'll be no surprise it was a little bit thicker than the 3/8 it should have been, so I had to do another pass and go down another butt hair. But it's perfect now, other than I must have went off course with the router, thinking of that hot cocoa. Dang fatness. I extended my track to do this side because the circle base is hard starting at nothing. So this way I have a little bit of something to start at before I get into the wood. And then also coming off the wood too. That way I don't have a curve or anything at the end.
That first one went so smoothly, I was like, I'm the king of the woodworkers. And then look what I did with this one. Can you see it, what's going on right here?
I jascoed the crap out of this. Look at that. I tried to take too much at once, and it just got out of my hand. I did this whole fence and everything, thinking, I'll do a better groove. I got this nice fence on here now. And instead I did this. What an idiot.
Okay, so I did a few more passes with the router, and there's enough meat left. The track fits good. I'm not going to worry about it. I didn't have to start over or anything or move the track. But if I make another mistake, I am rage quitting. I'm done. This track only came with 2 screw holes, so I'm going to add a third one in the middle just so it's more secure.
That's it, I'm done. I'm done with this woodworking crap. Well, I did a good year on YouTube, right? That's pretty good. You guys see what I did? You're going to laugh. Probably unsubscribe. But you're going to laugh. And I'm going to be demoted. I can't be called a woodworker anymore. What am I? Wood toucher. Boy, I should have thought that one through. Guy with a garage. How about that? Guy with some tools. Right? Let me show you what I did. All right, it's not too bad. I can live with that. It's just a shop jig. I mean, it's still functional. I screwed it to my bench. I should have checked the size of the screws that I was putting in. It's screwed to my bench right now. Well, thanks for coming to my channel. This has been a good year. I appreciate it.
Well, that's it. I finally quit YouTube. This ain't so bad, hanging out with my dogs, eating Pop-Tarts. I don't think there's anything that can get me back into woodworking again.
Are you sitting on my couch in your dusty clothes?
You guys still here? My wife was like, if you're quitting woodworking, you can help me out around the house. I was like, I ain't no quitter, woman. I found these 1/2-inch number 8s. They should do the trick. A little bit shorter, so we'll give these a try. These heads stick up a little bit more on these number 8s. The other ones must be number 6s, but see? I mean, it still goes past it, but it can catch on it. So I'm gonna just try to ream out a little bit more of the aluminum and see if that works. I got this square on Amazon because I saw it on another woodworker's channel, and it's cool. It has this thing right here that comes out, so it holds it up level. The only issue I have with it is that, you see this, you can do like 45s and stuff, which is cool, but when you're trying to make a line, because there's no support here, it keeps turning. So the whole thing I really wanted to use it for was the lines. I really like, I've seen people use them before. I don't own one. But when you're moving, you see it's because they have that 45 missing right here, it doesn't support itself. So it's constantly trying to do that while you're making a line. So I bought into the hype. If you guys know another one that's like this, that I can do that line like I'm trying to do, let me know. Leave it in the comments, all right? So I'm going to cut a 3-inch strip out of this one. And that's going to be my fence or straight edge, whatever you want to call it. It's going to attach to the other board. But before I do that, I got to put a channel in it to install this T-track into it. But I'm going to do that. I'm going to make the channel before I cut it to the 3-inch width, so I have more room. It just seems easier
when it's full size like this for the router to ride along it and for me to clamp it and all that. So that's my plan. Now I gotta make a 3-inch slot, and I'm making it 3 inches from the end of each side of this board. And for some reason, I'm very partial to 3 inches. To make the slot, I just drilled two 3/8 inch holes 3 inches apart, and then connected them with my jigsaw. And in my jigsaw, I used those scroll saw blades, the really skinny ones, and they actually worked really good because I couldn't really fit a full-size blade into the 3/8 inch hole. It fit, but it wasn't a good fit. So I got this kit, and it has a bunch of different T-track bolts in it and knobs that you can use with them. And I'm going to use that to put my fence together. I plan to make a lot more jigs in the future, so a kit like this should come in handy for me. I'll leave a link for it in the description if you guys want to pick one up. They're fairly cheap. I want to say it was maybe about 20 bucks.
There you go, another jig done. Let's give it a test. So this is the first fence I made with my rip guide, the skill saw attachment. See how bad it is? It's very wavy and off. The other side's even worse. Let me flip it around. Look at this. This is what I did with the rip guide. You see that? How bad it looks? So let's try to clean this up on the joiner jig. I'm gonna turn it this way and do the worst side first. Okay, so I clamped it to the joiner jig and I squared the fence with my speed square. Now I don't think you really have to do that unless you want your edges square, but you can always come back and square them up later, either on your miter saw or your crosscut sled. Now, when I was doing a lot of the research for this jig, I noticed that a lot of people put miter rails on these jigs. And I didn't do that because then you're kind of constrained to the width of your, whatever you put that miter rail. And I wanted to leave mine to where I use the fence to square it up. That way I can do whatever size board I want. Well, I mean, as wide as my fence is anyways. Like I said, I squared the fence just with a speed square to see how square I could get it, just to try it. And you see, look how square it came out. So that's pretty good. All right, guys, despite all the mishaps I had and almost rage quitting twice, I'd say this jig build was a success. It did exactly what I wanted to do. I was able to plane the edges of this board. And if I wanted to do a taper cut, all I'd have to do is move that over. As usual, I'll leave some links in the description for all the stuff I used during this build, and I'll leave a link to the table saw if you guys want to get one. In my opinion, it was great. I wish I would have done it sooner. This was less than 300 bucks. I was holding out for a really expensive saw, but this saw was a much needed upgrade compared to my last saw. So it has all the stuff I wanted on it. If you need one, if you're in need of a saw, less than $300, you can't beat this saw. It's a little loud, but other than that, man, it is great. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought of it. Until next time, get to building.